During the break, was thinking, just kind of reflecting on what you said about where our allegiances are, and particularly about acceptance, Amoda Maa. And I've been reading your book, Embodied Enlightenment, and if you'll indulge me, I want to read a passage that you wrote. That it's bewildering when I read it. In the quiet spaces of my heart, I get it because I'm wired that way. My mind wants to resist it. So indulge me, please. Real love is radical. It is gentle yet fierce, tenacious yet selfless, unconditional yet uncompromising. Just like a mother, love gets the job done even when it's unpleasant. And just like a mother, she will do anything to protect her children. She'll even sacrifice herself. When things get tough, love is unafraid of getting her hands dirty in the cesspool of earthly life. Love has the fortitude to go into the dirty places, business, banking, politics, the food, pharmaceutical industries, the medical establishment, and even religion. Love in action has no vestige of self-investment in it. Rather, it's an action that serves the wholeness of life. The dynamic power of this love is transformative. In the willingness to enter the heart of darkness, that place where personal fear, horror, terror, and pain are the greatest, there is the potential for rebirth into the universal heart, the place where everything, both dark and light, is seen to be an expression of oneness. The beggar, the thief, the murderer, the terrorist, the deformed, the sick are all worthy of love's fulfillment. So, wow, every time I read that and have reread it, it kind of, as I said, evokes a kind of bewilderment. On the one hand, my mind is like somehow resisting it. And yet, when I'm quiet and I just receive it from the heart, then it's a beautiful thing. So kind of staying on my theme from my earlier question today of earnestness, or at least being radically honest with ourselves. This this real love you speak about is even fine with the fact that here I've been, on a spiritual journey for 4.5 decades, and somehow I'm not getting it, as far as I'm not fully awake to the truth of what I am. Am I more awake than I was 10 years ago? Oh, for God's sakes, yes. As bit by bit has fallen away. But I would appreciate, as I'm rather exhausted, as one person kind of alluded to earlier, exhausted from this search, and I'd like for you to speak about this real love as it relates to what I've just said here. And thank you.
To put down all hope of a spiritual destination, and to sit inside the devastation of not knowing if you are more awake than you were, not knowing what awakeness is, not knowing where you are going, not knowing if you will get there. And to sit in the devastation of that not knowing is the birth or the seed of that love. The fearlessness of love, even though that passage partly alludes to love in action in the world, is really an internal one. That seed of love, the birth of love, has to take place internally first, in the inner landscape of devastation, which is really a dimension of not knowing. It's a dimension in which the self is annihilated. It may appear as a human experience as despair or desolateness or barrenness or a sense of existential abandonment or aloneness or a hopelessness. And it may also arise as a depression. Now, I'm not saying that this has to last forever, but it's an internal landscape of death, the death of hope. I know it sounds grim, but it truly is the seed of light. Yeah? And that's not necessarily something that we have to experience for a long time, but we have to be willing to experience it, to know it, to touch it, to taste it, to bow down to it, to walk one step at a time in that internal valley of death. If there is to be any resurrection, if there is to be any redemption into true love, your true nature as that love, which is the deepest, widest openness to what is. There's no idea of progress. There's no idea of even the spiritual path. All of that comes to an end because you live as that now and now and now and now. It's innocent, and there's a great courage in it. The courage of nakedness, the courage of not knowing. Yeah, love doesn't reach for a destination. Love doesn't have an agenda for the outcome. Love simply is. Love is when everything else has been demolished. You cannot help it. It's not something that then needs to be practiced. It cannot be helped. It simply moves in you as you. You don't have to believe in it. You don't have to conceptualize it. You don't have to hold it up as a trophy. It's the end of all that.